Yule rafiki yako alikuwa ananiambia ananipa mimi kodi ati mimi nakuja kusema urongo. Sasa unamsikia anahama bila alikwambia wewe?
Si mzee Mombasa ulitaka uone na maarifa mwenyewe. Haya huyu. Jumatatu gani? Hivi leo nilikuwa wahama kama mimi sikukuona na mzee Mombasa. Silikuwa mzee Mombasa atanishika mimi. Nilikuwa wahama bila kutuaga, si mzee Mombasa alikuwa atanishika mimi. Na nimlipe hizo pesa. Utalipa hata mimi niko tayari maarifa utoi kitu wala utoke bila kulipa pesa. Mtetee tafadhali. Kutetea nani?
Wakenya, ni wakati mwingine wa kuhakikisha kuwa umefile KRA returns. Je, uko rada una challenge yoyote? Usiwe na shaka. KRA wakishirikiana na KBC Channel 1 wanakuja hapo ulipo kusaidia kufile returns na kulipia ushuru wako. Jiunge na msafara wa KRA Roadshow uwe fiti mambo ya returns. Katika eneo la Machakos tarehe 29 mwezi Mei, msafara wetu utazuru maeneo ya Machakos Town, Mutituni, Tala, Chumvi, Athi River, Mlolongo, kisha tumalizie Syokimau. Tarehe 30 Juni kwa mlangoni. Usingoje hadi dakika za mwisho. File KRA returns mapema. Ishi bila stress. Jijue, jibeta. KRA, tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
Do you know what's inside that prepackaged food? Those unhealthy ultra-processed foods high in sugar, salt or unhealthy fats can lead to diseases.
According to the Ministry of Health, approximately 39% of all deaths in Kenya are as a result of non-communicable diseases such as obesity, diabetes, cancer and high blood pressure. The foods and drinks we consume every day can affect our health more than we realize.
Clear information on packages about what's in our food can help us have a healthy diet. From the Food Policy Coalition Kenya.
Another day of fire and fury as 16 students die in another school fire tragedy. This is indeed raising questions as to for how long will students continue to die in these school fires. And this is adding to the growing statistics of students who have ever perished because of fire tragedies. The question is, who will put the fires out? Good evening and thank you for joining us. It is coming to 9 o'clock here in Nairobi. You're watching the most trusted newscast this side of Africa. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We are covering the Utumishi Senior School fire tragedy. We have our teams on the ground, plus a full coverage of today's event starts right now after the highlights.
Out of that number of 808, we have 16 fatalities whose identities will be identified. The process of accounting will be taking place with our investigators.
School tragedy. 16 students confirmed dead following a fire incident at Utumishi Girls Senior School in Gilgil, Nakuru County. Critical airlift. 7 students injured in the Utumishi School in Fano airlifted to Nairobi for emergency treatment.
It's time for us
to look at how we can slow down on especially the low income earners and remove some taxes from them.
And tax relief proposal. President Ruto announces plans to eliminate income tax for Kenyans earning below 30,000 shillings during the 23rd National Prayer Meeting in Nairobi. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Anyway, in the company of Lucy Maura as our sign language interpreter. Welcome to the program. Investigations are ongoing to establish the cause of the fire that razed down a dormitory at Utumishi Girls Academy Senior School, claiming 16 lives and leaving 79 others injured. For the better part of the afternoon, several students were questioned by security agencies in a bid to unravel the circumstances under which the fire occurred. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, who visited the school, has vowed to ensure justice is served for the victims and their families. Now I want to take you to Utumishi Academy in Nakuru County, where Nancy Okware has been there the whole day tracking down the happenings. And of course, she's now ready to give us an update on what's happening already. It's night, as you can see, and there is very minimal activities taking place there. Nancy, if you can hear me, please roll us through what's happening down there.
Very good evening to you, O'Brien Kimani. We are coming to you live from Utumishi Senior Girls Academy right here in Gilgil, Nakuru County. The tragic story gutted down a dormitory claiming 16 lives. During the day where some students were actually investigated, they were being questioned by officers right here at this, because the officers are trying to information and if it was a case of arson, and that is something because we have been told that the students who are being questioned right here at this institution for the better part of the afternoon, that is close to 29 students, are currently being held at the administration block right here in this school, awaiting further investigation that will be continuing tomorrow. And their parents have been told to go home first, then they will come back tomorrow, because the officers still have critical information that they need to get from the students. We've been told that there is a possibility some of the students who had already gone home might be recalled to come back and record statements. Earlier on, when I did a live link at 7 p.m., the bodies from the dormitories had been brought outside. It is an exercise that had started at 5 p.m., but at around 7 p.m., the bodies were still outside. But what we can confirm right now is that the bodies have already been moved. They were moved some minutes past 8 p.m., and we've been told they've been taken to Naivasha that's where the bodies have been. And of course, a number have been fire broke 16 lives, and we have been just take a look at what was happening during the day.
The inferno, which broke out minutes after midnight at the Melinwe Thera block, housing more than 200 students, has left 16 families mourning their loved ones.
Out of the 808 girls, 79 were injured and taken to the hospital. They were treated, and 71 of them were discharged. We have 7 currently admitted, and 1 has been picked by the parent from the hospital.
The school compound was filled with parents frantically searching for their children.
Tell me
Those who were fortunate enough to escape the fire were released to go home with their parents.
This is a serious tragedy. The investigations are going to be thorough. The Director of Criminal Investigation is here. The crime scene investigators are already here. The officers from government chemists are also here. And all processes will be done, including DNA tests, to ensure that these processes are done successfully. And I just want to say that poleni sana, on behalf of myself, my colleague, our government, we want to say poleni sana, and we'll continue standing with you.
We are working to make sure that everything that needs to be done is done. And as you have heard, we also have the Director of Criminal Investigations and his team, because it's also important to get to the bottom of what caused the fire so that we can make sure that it does not happen in the future anywhere else.
However, for the families of the 16 who perished, the wait would be longer owing to the identification of the bodies. By 5 p.m., the bodies were removed from the dormitory one by one before being transported to the mortuary. The injured students were rushed to Gilgil Sub-County Hospital and St. Mark's Hospital for treatment as crime scene investigation officers from Nakuru processed the scene. The cause of the fire is yet to be established, with the investigation still ongoing.
And of course, remember, Nancy Okware, our reporter, is camping there in Nakuru County, so that she can give us more updates on what's happening tomorrow. And as of course, as she has reported, the 16 bodies have been moved to Naivasha General Hospital morgue. And of course, tomorrow we are expecting to see further briefing from the senior government officials. And so you keep it right here. 7 students injured in the Utumishi Academy School tragedy are receiving treatment at the Kenyatta National Hospital after being airlifted to Nairobi. According to doctors, the students, who are all from Form 4 girls, sustained fractures and smoke-related injuries while trying to escape from the dormitory.
One by one, the 7 students who sustained injuries during Utumishi Academy School Inferno incident were brought to Kenyatta National Hospital on Thursday afternoon by ambulances, including those from the Kenya Defence Forces. Speaking at the hospital, KNH Director of Surgery Dr. Kennedy Ondede confirmed that the 7 students arrived in stable condition, but with varying degrees of injuries, including panic and attempts to escape from the school dormitory fire.
We have received 7 patients so far, and these are all Form 4s, ladies, who happen to have been on the first floor of the building that is was involved in this incident. And these children have suffered various injuries, apparently from stampede and jumping, mainly jumping from first floor to try and save themselves.
2 of the students are suspected to have sustained spinal injuries after losing movement in their lower limbs, while others suffered ankle fractures, burns and smoke inhalation. The doctors expressed optimism that most of the injuries are manageable and that many of the learners could be discharged within a week after treatment.
We must thank the facility that did the first response to these children and stabilize them. So ours is now to do the intensive investigations, deeper analysis of their injuries, then we intervene accordingly.
However, they acknowledge that the emotional and psychological scars left by the tragedy could take much longer to heal, noting that psychological support will be the next necessary step.
A lot of parents and children are affected by this psychologically, so we have teams set up from the mental health, counselors, psychologists, and we'll try and walk the journey with them, because it's not an easy journey and it's an unfortunate event, and we hope it doesn't happen again.
Joseph Wahungu for Prime Edition.
Quite a painful day there for the families, relatives, and of course for the students of Utumishi Academy. You're watching the Prime Edition. We are taking our first break. We are coming back with more stories and of course the much awaited analysis on the school fire tragedies in Kenya.
Wakenya, ni wakati mwingine wa kuhakikisha kuwa umefile KRA returns. Je, uko rada una challenge yoyote? Usiwe na shaka. KRA wakishirikiana na KBC Channel 1 wanakuja hapo ulipo kusaidia kufile returns na kulipia ushuru wako. Jiunge na msafara wa KRA Roadshow, uwe fiti mambo ya returns.
Katika eneo la Machakos tarehe 29 mwezi Mei, msafara wetu utazuru maeneo ya Machakos Town, Mutituni, Tala, Chumvi, Athi River, Mlolongo, kisha tumalizie Syokimau.
Tarehe 30 Juni iko mlangoni. Usingoje hadi dakika za mwisho. File KRA returns mapema. Ishi bila stress. Jijue, jibeta. KRA, tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
Kenya is shifting gears from Nairobi to Mombasa, Nakuru to Kisumu. The electric revolution is already moving. Now, the conversation that drives it forward comes to KICC Nairobi, where Kenya Power, Electric Mobility Association of Kenya, EMAC, GIZ, government leaders, innovators, and investors will all be in one room during the 4th annual Kenya Power E-Mobility Conference and Expo 2026. Themed Aligning Policy, Infrastructure and Partnerships to Scale E-Mobility in Kenya. The conference will take place on 4th and 5th June 2026 at KICC Nairobi. Kenya Power, powering e-mobility, pamoja twanga. Watch it live only on KBC.
Rockfield leo wana mambo fulani. Rockfield
Alfajiri tuamka, macheo yametujia, umande unanyauka, jua linatufikia.
Bendera imepata heshima stahiki.
Bendera inapochafuka au kunyeshewa haioshwi, na hii ni ukosefu wa heshima. Je, hii ni kuheshimu bendera? Baadhi ya mashujaa tunaowajua waliotutangulia wamezikwa na bendera. Je, hii ni heshima kweli?
Nini maana ya chuku katika fasihi?
Chuku ni mbinu ya matilia chumvi katika vitendo katika kazi ya fasihi ili kueleza hisia fulani.
Kila siku tuwe na amani.
Kwa sauti?
Kila siku tuwe na amani.
Umeanza vizuri na amani.
Kila siku tuwe na shukrani.
Kila siku tuwe na shukrani, wapiga makofi jamani.
Imagine a child growing up in silence, unable to hear their parents' voices or the sounds of the world around them.
Niligundua akiwa 2.5 ndo nilijua ako na shida ya hearing, na nilijua kati anacheza ukimuita harespond.
At the Kenyatta National Hospital, a landmark program involving 50 cochlear implant surgeries is offering a new beginning.
Mambo. Sasa Dylan. Shika.
So it's a multifactorial. We have the radiologist or the radiographers who do the CT scan and the MRIs. We have the vaccination that is part of the requirement for patients who are undergoing cochlear implantation.
We've got so much fun waiting for you today.
Hi guys, my name is Tamara Merino Angoi. I'm a model and I'm 10 years old. I started modeling when I was around 5 years old. It was hard at first, but I still managed until this day.
Well, in today's book, we explore different careers and find out what do these people do. And who knows? Maybe it will give you some ideas of careers that you can take. Our book is What Do You Want to Be?
Big blue balloons bob by the big bridge. The big balloons bob by the big bridge.
And today I'm going to show you how to make chicken noodle soup.
I have no more tears to shed. I want to be in charge of my life because I'm a boy child and I'm not taking the back seat anymore, not unless it is in a limo or a Mercedes Benz.
Kutoka kaunti 42 tunakuletea mafunzo kuhusu kilimo endelevu.
Sasa napata watoto hawa pia
wako na negative attitude towards gardening, sababu wanasema shamba wameachia watu washago, watu wachafu, wakienda shambani wachafuka. Sasa tulileta mradi huu shuleni, wajua ya kwamba hata ukienda shambani, ukitoka huko utaoga, utakuwa tu sawa. Na samba pia kuna pesa huko, hawajui tu, ndio nataka sasa wajue pesa iko hapa shambani, mchangani.
Ungana nasi kila Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo.
Welcome back. You're watching the Prime Edition live from Broadcasting House. And of course, it's such a sad day. 16 lives lost of young, beautiful girls at school. This is not the first time. In 2024, it was Endarasha Boys School. Before then, many others have happened, from Bombolulu High School to Changuli fire tragedy that claimed about 76 learners. The statistics are growing. Frustrations are also growing, and questions are coming in fast and thick. And the question is, who will put out the fires? And nobody seems to have an answer to that question. Tonight, this is going to be our conversation tonight. And the people joining me on the set, we have Hesbon Odhiambo. He's the National Emergency Operations Center Coordinator for Kenya Red Cross. He is on my extreme left. Thank you very much indeed, Hesbon Odhiambo, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
And the man in the middle is Cornelius Oduor. He's a Deputy Executive Director at the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Thank you very much indeed, Cornelius, for your time.
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with Hesbon. I mean, when the news started streaming in about the loss of, or the fire at Utumishi, what was your first reaction?
Thank you very much, Brian, for having me on set. It is definitely saddening to hear the loss and any fire that happens across the country. And it does not only give that atmosphere of sadness for losing lives, apart from even just the community members around that area, the uncertainties. It's really painful, and for this, we want to say a big pole to the families that have been affected by this. And we know that it's not very easy. So for us, as the Kenya Red Cross, it is normally very difficult because we spring into action immediately to do what our mandate is, of which is saving lives. Mm-hmm. And of course, we try as much as possible to give it utmost urgency, because we know the effects. Just like you've mentioned, we've had quite a number of incidents in the past, in the last 2 decades, where we've had some extreme incidents within the learning institutions. Mm-hmm. So this was one of the incidences that we really give it the utmost urgency, and to rush and support as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So we sprang into action. Mm-hmm. Yes,
at what point or at what time did you come to learn about the fire?
The calls came in at the Emergency Operations Center just after about midnight. Around 1 o'clock. Mm-hmm. That's when we started getting the calls. Mm-hmm. Of course, from the Emergency Operations Center, which is the toll-free line for the Kenya Red Cross, mm-hmm. that is 1199. Mm-hmm. We got calls. And
sorry, say that again for people to know.
So the toll-free number for Red Cross is 1199. Mm-hmm. 1199, and this is the number that we've disseminated out there in case of emergencies. Mm-hmm. And after this, we were really, we got information from our teams on ground who responded to the incident. We also made calls to different fire stations and different stakeholders, mm-hmm. response agencies that we had from the National Disaster Operations Center, National Disaster Management Unit, and just bring into action, just doing the normal algorithms of response. Mm-hmm.
So the first call came at about midnight, that's what you're saying? Or past midnight?
Past midnight.
At what point did the first search and rescue teams arrive at the scene?
Well, I can't say exactly what the timings, but I know that at the time I was getting to office was probably most of the teams were working overnight for us. We have a 24-hour operation center. But the response agencies that were close by, the fire brigade, I can't tell you exactly what time they arrived there because we didn't keep account on that. But for us, the calls started just running from 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, just moving and getting calls from all over. This went all day until the time when the number was disseminated throughout the day, calls coming in for different reasons, asking questions. Of course, our number is in the public domain, so when whoever has any questions, they'll definitely call the Emergency Operations Center for that. Yes, so
and of course, I mean, we all know in any accident or incident, I mean, the golden hour is 120 minutes from the time of the incident or the accident. That's when search and rescue officers are supposed to be on site so that they can ensure that they rescue as many people as possible. Was they, from the information that you have, did we have these teams on the ground within 120 minutes, or they arrived past that time?
Well, I can't say exactly that it is 120 minutes because there are many factors that play into the 120 minutes. One is the time of call when it is made from the scene of incident. The time of activation of emergency help, that is from the ground. So if there was something in the school, then there was a fire alarm or something, someone must have raised an alarm. The time that they're going to call that there's an issue, that's when now you start counting. The other time that you'd look at is probably if the teams are dispatched from a certain point, there's distances from where the nearest fire station is or nearest help is. The other thing is also, even as we come in, I'll just give an example, if you allow me. Some time back, we had some fire along Gong Road, and teams responded, but you'll find that the roads were blocked on one side. So they had to go around, and that took more time. So there are many factors that play into the 120 minutes, the golden hour that we talk about. And it also boils down to, do you have emergency activation systems within an institution? So in case there's an emergency, like right now here in studio, then what is the next, how long would it take for the fire engine to move from fire station down here to here? There's the roads, there's the roundabouts and the rest. So there's a lot that plays around that, but probably we would not want to look at right now because sometimes you don't know how the status is on ground and movement. But I know one thing, that the emergency response agencies did their best to reach there at the time that
at the earliest time possible.
At the earliest time possible.
Cornelius, you know, as a person who works with a human rights agency, what was your first reaction when you heard another school fire tragedy, barely 2 years after the Enda Russia school in Nyeri?
Indeed, Saturday, waking up to this tragic news about another fire in our boarding schools, less than 2 years, because Enda Russia happened in September 2024. They will actually be celebrating their second anniversary come September. We thought probably there are critical lessons that have been picked from previous fire incidences, and we are not looking forward to this kind of news. So it's a sad day for Kenya that 16 of very, very young people whose futures now has been shattered because of probably something that could have been avoided. So as a human rights organization, first let me just share my heartfelt condolences as a parent first, and also as a human rights advocate for seeing those parents walking to school not knowing which kind of news will reach them, either if their loved ones are alive or they are dead or they are maimed. I looked at the screens and I really felt bad for these parents. So I think we must do everything possible within our means, first as government, to see to it that our schools are properly equipped and prepared to deal with such strategies. Because I think since Bombolulu, almost 30 years ago up to now, and the kind of reports that have emerged from assessment reports from these incidences, there are very, very critical recommendations that have been put forward by various task forces. It's disturbing that we don't seem to be picking critical lessons to avoid this kind of calamities. Yeah.
And I like the fact that you are bringing in the fact that this is not the first school fire incident. I mean, we've had many from Bombolulu fire tragedy, Changuli, Endarasha. And after every fire incident, I mean, government officials, they issue statements. Investigating agencies, they say they are going to leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we move from one tragedy to the next. We thought the Endarasha fire tragedy was going to offer us some lessons on how to avoid future tragedies. Do you think there are any lessons that we have learned from Endarasha?
It appears not, because most of the reports, assessment reports, are pointed to negligence and non-compliance with the safety standards. Remember, most of this, the Ministry of Education in 2008 did develop manual for safety standards in schools, especially boarding schools. And most of the assessment reports point to negligence on the part of authorities who are concerned, because these schools are supposed to be equipped. These schools have their standard on how boarding facilities and dormitories are supposed to be set up to ensure that safety is guaranteed when such calamities do happen. But it's clear even from the 2024 assessment report that was commissioned by assessment compliance report that was commissioned by the Ministry of Education. Quite a number of schools were found to be wanting in terms of meeting the threshold for safety. And quite a number of them, we were told, were shut down. Now it tells you that in between, people have gone back to business as usual, and most of schools have found a way of going on with their operations. Remember, since the 100% transition to secondary schools, these schools have, especially public schools, have very, very high number of students going to these schools. And the pressure for boarding facilities is increasing every other year. So there's a tendency of schools converting buildings that were not hitherto meant for boarding facilities. And some of them are converted without prior approval by concerned authorities. Some of these things are what has led to this kind of strategies, because when you hear news coming from Gilgil, and what is being reported is that students were running away for safety, only to meet a dead end. It means, therefore, either there were no drills undertaken in this kind of schools, so students don't know where to go when such a thing happened. Neither the administration probably was not around to provide the necessary support. Yeah, strategies do happen, but when we lose 16, this is very serious.
This is serious, bearing in mind that in Endarasha, about 21 lives were lost.
Yeah.
And this, you know, this is so gut-wrenching, bearing in mind that these are not just numbers. These are human beings. These are children whose parents have invested in them so much, and you know, their lives have been cut short. This was supposed to be the future doctors, the future AI strategists, the computer scientists, but now their parents have to bury them, and the nation will have to bid them farewell. Does it bother you that even despite all these fires that we have witnessed as a nation, nobody, no education official, no teacher, nobody has ever been convicted and jailed or punished for negligence or for allowing these things to happen?
Yes, at some point it bothers when someone is not convicted around this or held accountable for this. However, for us, what we emphasize mostly is the measures that have been put in place to be able to avert or reduce this. As a humanitarian agency, we emphasize mostly on prevention, which we know is very much possible in such scenarios. For me, I would look at it like my colleague has said, that measures have to be put in place in terms of the children or the learners or the people who might be affected, or even institutions, let me say so, that they have measures in place to be able to prevent such situations that have happened. And then the other thing is also to prepare for such kind of scenarios. In case they happen, then what do we do? Because you've heard that they were trying to run away and they were trying to do this. And the same story has been with other incidences that we've seen across the country. So in terms of issues to do with preparedness within the institutions is also something that is a concern, that we should be able to strengthen this as much as possible. Again, the other thing that I would really worry me so much is early detection, like you had alluded to earlier. The timings in which you can be able to respond to this depends on the early detection. How early can you be able to detect that something is not right in this, and then what can you do? What are the next steps? And this leads to the preparedness measures, whereby now you say, in case this happens, then this is what I'm supposed to do. And for us to be able to have measures in place, for example, if it's a door, does it open inward or outward? And what are the kind of procedures we're supposed to do in that relation? So for us, basically, for me, where I sit, I want to see measures being put in place, and this in learning institutions, and probably ensuring that whenever we have people in one space, then they already have knowledge of what to do in case of an emergency. That really helps, because that way we can be able to save ourselves. If you look at what happened, there are many students who are able to save themselves one way or another. And again, they knew maybe probably what to do, or they were not caught up in certain situation, the door or maybe stampede and something like that. And these are the kind of this is the kind of knowledge that we're supposed to instill in our students as soon as they get into a facility. Not only students, we've seen fires, even residential fires. When you get into malls, when you get into spaces, then you need to strategically know how you're going to be able to move away from that situation. But this has to be done through continuous awareness sessions. This has to be done through simulation exercises, testing of the systems. This has to be done by continuous analysis of any single development that is done within an institution. Then it needs to go with, again, other skills that have been imparted on people within that institution. Yeah.
Yes, and of course, if you're just joining us, we are looking at various fire tragedies that have rocked this nation for the last 3 decades. And of course, this is coming against the incident that happened this morning in Nakuru County, Utumishi Academy, where 16 students have lost their lives. And we're in the company of officials from the Red Cross Society, as well as the Kenya Human Rights Commission. And we're trying to ask ourselves difficult questions as to what do we need to do to avert future fire tragedies? And if we cannot stop them, what do we need to do to minimize the victims or the damage? And I want to hear this from you, Cornelius. I've heard about proposals of setting up mini firefighting vehicles and locating them either adjacent to the schools or inside schools. Because look at it from this perspective. You have, for example, Utumishi Academy. You had about 815 students concentrated in one area, probably maybe 5 acres. Not forgetting about, not counting the teachers, the non-teaching staff, like drivers, security people, and all these. Is this something that we should try? Is it something that is workable? Having mini trucks, firefighting machines or systems in our schools?
That sounds a very good idea, but I still go back to the issue of compliance, because before a school is registered, I think there are minimum criteria that the facility needs to meet. One of them is safety.
Yeah.
Equally important, within the Ministry of Education, there are departments, such the Quality Assurance Department, that's supposed to do spot check assessment of school facilities to ensure that they are prepared. What we've seen for the last 20 or 30 years indicates that nothing is being done to ensure that schools are properly prepared.
The script is like the same, it's almost the same.
When such an incident of this magnitude happens, everybody goes to those spaces and issue statements. But immediately after, people go back.
We forget and we
and
move on.
in between, you realize that then that there are no spot checks being done, there's no drills being done, simulation is not done, and you can find these equipments within the vicinity of the schools, but you'll be surprised that they're either not functional because nobody checks on them. Yeah, we just need to take our job serious as enforcement officers. I think one of the things that we've raised as a human rights organization is that the ministry needs to prioritize safety in schools, and the departments that are concerned need to be well equipped and resourced so that they are able to do their work efficiently. That is the only way we are going to avoid, because they say prevention is better than cure. We don't need to wait for these kind of things to make broad policy statements that are not followed by deliberate actions to see to it that this kind of thing does not happen again.
You know, in every county, you have officials from government, from the Ministry of Education, of what we call national, quality assurance officers.
Yes.
In most cases, they are very few and underfunded. Nakuru County is not far off from Nairobi. You're looking at about 150 kilometers.
Thereabouts.
How then do we ensure that, first of all, do we really need to do an audit of all the quality assurance officials that we have? For example, in Nakuru County, do we really need to find out, had they written a report about that school? Were safety regulations adhered to in that school? Were students taken through safety manuals and their safety obligations in case of an emergency? And if this was to be done, then who is going to do it?
You see, even in this particular incident, if somebody was to inquire when there was a proper assessment in this particular school, you might find that it probably would have been very, very long time ago that this kind of thing was done. But even if not talking about Utumishi, quite a number of schools were found to be wanting.
Yes.
In just a rapid assessment, there were nearly 350 schools that were found not to be meeting the standards.
350 schools?
350 schools that essentially were supposed to be closed. But most of them have found a way of going back to the normal operation. So essentially what we are saying, the Department for Quality Assurance is not properly resourced to be able to do this work. And even the few that are there, I think they are just idling and not being able to do much. Because we can't be having these kind of incidences every other year. There are so many that go unreported. Beyond just fires, there are so many deaths that have been registered in schools because of either poor infrastructure. Some of them have found themselves in this old septic tanks, these kind of things. Some have drowned in swimming pools. So the whole atmosphere and scope of safety must be looked at. Even the issue of sanitation, access to water, and all these kind of things. So I think the department needs to be resourced, and we need to be more serious in terms of compliance and supervision to ensure that the people who have been bestowed with the responsibility to check on schools are actually doing their work, and they are issuing reports frequently that then informs policy and policy implementation. Otherwise, if we are going to issue these statements and then tomorrow we go back, I will not be surprised before the end of the year if there will be another incident of this magnitude.
Like, let's first of all revisit the Endarasha in Nyeri County. You know, the school was a boys' boarding school. 21 lives were lost, and all investigation pointed to negligence and lack of proper safety awareness, as well as installation of proper safety equipment in that school. The school was the boarding part of the school was closed. The day school was allowed to continue. Was that strong deterrence measures, and was that good enough to ensure that at the schools, they pick up lessons from Endarasha, they implement safety protocols, and we move forward. And I want to hear that from you.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I think you've got it spot on, because sometimes after an incident, then you find that institutions will rush to start having measures in place, or just trying to pick up time and things like that. And yes, one of the things we've seen across as the Red Cross is this gap. And one of the things that we try to do is to have school programs whereby we educate learners, staff on emergency evacuation procedures, basic first aid and life support. And that's one of the ways that we try to cover that gap. But again, it only goes for probably a certain amount of time. For the institutions that we work with, every single time we ensure that either on a weekly or a monthly basis we visit them and walk with them that journey. For some institutions, it might be a bit difficult to walk that journey sometimes because of cost implications that come with certain aspects. For example, when we have procurement of equipment that are going to be placed in those schools. So yes, some of them have been able to jump in and start doing something, but some also are not able to keep up for the longest time. I will not say that they're not there. There are schools that have adequate measures in place, and others do not have probably reached there already. So we try our level best to support them, and the prevention measures for some are already adequate, but some are not. So it's a work in progress. Again, incidents like this, like my colleague was saying, that sometimes when you do an audit, because most schools have not even done the audits itself. So again, through the institutions that we have across the country, for instance, at the Kenya Red Cross, we have the Kenya Red Cross Training Institute, where we advise that you go and get trained on this, including staff, and even sometimes we have the students being trained on this. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, if you're just joining us, we are tracking the fire tragedies in school, and we're in the company of two experts. One is Hesbon Othiambo, is a National Emergency Operations Center Coordinator for Kenya Red Cross, and we have Cornelius Odur, he's a Deputy Executive Director at Kenya Human Rights Commission, giving us their professional perspective on this issue, how to put safeguards to ensure that this does not occur. As the country mourns the death of 16 students in a tragic dormitory fire at Utumishi Girls Senior Schools in Gilgil, painful memories of past school tragedies have resurfaced. The pattern remains hauntingly familiar amid queries on whether lessons from previous tragedies have been taken, implemented, or left to gather dust. Aaron Marie traces the chronology of school fires in Kenya and the safety concerns that continue to put learners at risk as educationists call for an end to such tragedies.
The smoke may have cleared at Utumishi Girls Senior School in Gilgil, but it has left in its wake pain, anger, and unanswered questions. 16 students dead, dozens injured, another tragedy with little answers. The chronology of school fires tragedies claiming the life of learners in boarding school stretch back decades.
Based on our statement, I can scope it right from the St. Kizito's 1991 school. I'm citing that because at that particular moment, then President Moi established a team, what we are calling a task force, to investigate what really happened. And they'll also put in the Shanguli of the 2001, because at that time also, still the same President Moi set in place a task force to investigate what happened.
About 2 years ago in September 2024, at least 20 students died in a fire in Hillside and Endarasha Academy in Nyeri County, sparking nationwide grief. Prior to that, the country had woken up to the news of a fire incident at Moi Girls, Nairobi in September 2017 that claimed 10 students. In 2012, a fire razed down St. Teresa Asumbi Girls in Homa Bay, killing 8 pupils. The fire incident had happened 11 years after a fire killed 67th student at Kianguli Secondary School started by 2 learners. Other school fire incidents that made national headlines were in 1998, the Bombolulu fire incident that killed 26, and St. Kizito Mixed Secondary School tragedy in Meru that claimed 19 lives. Education stakeholders say while every tragedy appears different, the underlying problems remain painfully similar.
The difference you'll find in them probably could be the dates. The content are so similar. The content talks about the structures of the boarding facilities and structures that for the classrooms and other areas where students are supposed to reside and where they're supposed to learn, how safety standards, safety measures are supposed to be established.
Despite the Ministry of Education introducing safety manuals and guidelines, implementation remained a major concern.
So it deals with 3 things: structures, it deals with the policy that establishes within the school framework at least teams that are well versed with safety and standards issues. And these teams, by the time that we had the 2013 Constitution, 2013 Basic Education Act, those teams were incorporated in the basic education regulations as the safety and emergency and disaster management committee.
One striking observation is the recurring dominance of fires in girls' boarding schools. They argue that while discipline and control are important in learning institutions, some schools prioritize strict confinement measures at the expense of student safety. Civil society groups are now demanding accountability and urgent reforms. They are also calling for nationwide safety audits, stronger quality assurance systems, and regular surprise inspections. As families grieve and investigations are ongoing, the country is left with one haunting question: for how long will we be losing lives? Reporting for KBC Channel 1, I'm Aaron Murray.
Of course, our reporter there, Aaron Marie, taking us through painful memory lanes, and of course, the Kianguli fire tragedy on the 25th of March 2001 remains the worst school fire tragedy in Kenya. And back then, the Minister for Education was none other than Kalonzo Musyoka Stephen. He was the Minister for Education. Back then, it was Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development. And the president back then was the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. And he said when he visited that school that no stone was going to be left unturned, and that the government back then was going to ensure that those who are culpable were brought to justice. The Minister for Education back then led a team of high-ranking government officers to try and track the history or the beginning of that tragedy. And up to today, nobody has ever been charged because of that tragedy. Here we are again today, mourning the death of 16 students at Tumaini. Tumaini? Utumishi. Yeah, Utumishi, not Tumaini. Utumishi Girls' School in Nakuru County. 2 officers are here with me, and they're helping us to put and piece this critical information together. We have Hesbon, he's from the Kenya Red Cross Society, and of course Cornelius, he's also from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Gentlemen, we have about some few minutes before we wrap it up. I want to hear this from you, Hesbon. This school is about 60 kilometers outside Nakuru town. Nakuru town is a city. It is expected that it has a functioning fire and such, as well as rescue department. When you went to the ground, did you see like it was present, it was available at the hour of need?
Yes, the fire engine is there. And of course...
Did it head water?
Well, I didn't check because when we get on ground, first of all, is we want to save life, first of all, because the first thing we look for is the student in such kind of a situation. You know, there's a lot of chaos, and we have to ensure that we get all of these students to safety. The next thing is basically looking at the nearest ambulance that we have. So of course, we went with some ambulances and, of course, response teams. And whenever we're in that kind of a situation, the first thing is you want to stabilize the scene as fast as possible so that you prevent further injury, because there's a lot of panic that is within. You are the beacon of hope for these students, and you try as much as possible to ensure that they are calm because of the hysteria that they have at that moment. So when you get to such kind of a situation, you try as much as possible to bring them. So we tried to manage those that we could be able to manage. We tried to offer first aid for those who we could be able to do, and evacuate as soon as possible to the nearest. All response agencies that came on board really tried their best to coordinate together. The National Disaster Operations Center, the National Disaster Management Unit were all on ground, and security personnel. Of course, there's other secondary situations that might arise, because at that point, even parents are coming on board and community members.
Very well.
Yeah.
As we wind up this interview, I want to hear from you, Cornelius. Where do we go from here, and what lessons should we pick and fly with them?
My take is that unless we hold the officers responsible and institutions responsible to account, nothing is going to change. What we are demanding as Kenya Human Rights Commission and the Elimu Bora Working Group is that there is very comprehensive investigation into this matter. And if finds out that some institutions and irresponsible officers were culpable and were negligent, then they must be reprimanded. This is the only way that institutions and individuals responsible for running schools will get to know that they will be individually held accountable for these kind of losses. But the way we are moving, where reports are done and then they are just put in the shelves to gather dust, nobody bothers. It will be business as usual. I am imploring upon the Minister of Education and the enforcement officers to really now take this matter seriously, do a proper investigation, and have the institutions responsible held accountable. This is the reason why we went to court in the regard to the Endarasha Hillside Academy. It's only after we went to court that the boarding section of the school, because we are challenged the immediate closure of the school, but the owner of the school was able to negotiate that is able to close the boarding section, which we somehow granted. But we now feel that government now needs to take stiffer actions for any other incident that happens, starting with this Utumishi. Because parents, even in Darasha, are yet to get justice. There is a public inquiry that has been established. There are 2 court cases that are currently going on, and they are dragging. Before we could even get justice and to get to know what exactly happened in Darasha,
then we have
Utumishi. So we must do things differently.
Very good. In 1 second, well, not 1 second, in 15 seconds, what is your message to the parents who are grieving the loss of their children, and the children or the students who are nursing their injuries?
First and foremost is to offer condolences to the parents who have lost their children, and for those parents who are facing this, we want to just say that we are here as the Red Cross. We are offering mental health support, psychosocial support on scene. We are also going to continue offering mental health support up to tomorrow for both the staff, students, and even the parents themselves. Okay. They can always reach out to us on 1199, as was earlier said on media. And our call, we are offering telecounseling services also for them, for those who cannot be able to reach there. Just call us and we'll be able to give you those counseling services on phone. Our numbers are again 1199, and the last is for all other learning institutions that are within the country. The message is to do 3 things that we had said earlier. Number 1 is prevention, strengthen prevention. Number 2 is strengthen preparedness through trainings, offering simulation exercises, and of course the last one is probably looking at equipping your institution ready for any eventualities, not only fire, but we have so many other things that might come, including floods. And
very good.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight and for offering this perspective. It is highly needed and very critical.
Thank you for having
Your time
us.
is highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Very good. This is a number that you need to write down somewhere. Is a national hotline for Red Cross. It is 1199. Did I get it right? Yes, 11, that is 1199. It is toll free, which means that you don't pay even a single coin. And in case you need any counseling because of the events that you saw in that school, are you a parent, a teacher, a relative, or whoever, and you need psycho counseling, please call this number. Red Cross officers are waiting, and they're going to offer you the necessary support that is needed for you to move on. To the parents, our heart goes out to you. And of course, to the injured, we wish you quick recovery. And to the Utumishi school, the sun will indeed set again. The Ministry of Health has assured Kenyans that the country remains fully prepared to respond to any possible Ebola outbreak following renewed regional concerns of rising numbers and fatalities. Uganda already closed its borders with Democratic Republic of Congo to curb the fast-spreading disease. Medical Services Principal Secretary Dr. Ouma Oluga defended the country's readiness to participate in global Ebola response efforts. Dr. Aluga said Kenya will not retreat from its international health obligations, affirming that the country's foremost duty lies in protecting its citizens.
The government has moved to reassure Kenyans over the country's preparedness to deal with Ebola and other infectious disease outbreaks. Speaking on the country's readiness, Medical Service Principal Secretary Dr. Ouma Oluga said Kenya has put in place strong emergency response systems, citing years of experience in successfully handling global health threats, including COVID-19.
We, as the Ministry of Health, are taking all measures to ensure that we protect Kenyans and we protect Kenya from international health outbreaks. And so far, we are dealing with an international public health outbreak for Ebola that is in DRC.
According to the ministry, more than 2,200 healthcare workers have already been trained in Ebola response and infectious disease case management, noting that Kenya currently has one of the highest isolation capacity in the region.
2,200 healthcare workers have been trained. But you also know that Kenya has been at the forefront of international response. In 2015, the country that was relied upon by the world to send 157 experts to help Sierra Leone contain and tackle Ebola from 2014 all the way to 2016.
On the other hand, Principal Secretary for Public Health Mary Mudhoni emphasized on laboratory preparedness, saying Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, remains one of the world's leading infectious disease laboratories, with neighboring countries continuing to rely on Kenya for testing and confirmation of Ebola samples.
Our labs have really been enhanced. You know, in 2019, 2020, during COVID, we could send our samples as far as South Africa. That is how low we were. But today, our labs have the capacity to test and give results within 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours.
The remarks come amid reports of a diplomatic and health coordination standoff involving Kenyan officials in Uganda over cross-border Ebola containment measures and movement restrictions linked to surveillance operations. This comes as the U.S. announced enhanced travel screening, entry restrictions, and public health measures to prevent Ebola virus disease from entering the country amid ongoing outbreaks in the East and Central Africa. Noel Ongeso for Prime Edition.
Do you know what's inside that prepackaged food? Those unhealthy ultra-processed foods high in sugar, salt, or unhealthy fats can lead to diseases.
According to the Ministry of Health, approximately 39% of all deaths in Kenya are as a result of non-communicable diseases such as obesity, diabetes, cancer, and high blood pressure. The foods and drinks we consume every day can affect our health more than we realize.
Clear information on packages about what's in our food can help us have a healthy diet. From the Food Policy Coalition Kenya.
Welcome back. President William Ruto has announced plans to exempt Kenyans earning up to 30,000 shillings from paying income tax in a move aimed at easing the burden on low-income earners in the wake of the rising cost of living. Speaking during the 23rd National Prayer Breakfast organised by Parliament in Nairobi, the head of state said the proposal, if adopted in Parliament, would create a 40 billion shillings revenue gap, but insisted the government will pursue innovative ways of financing the development without overburdening ordinary Kenyans.
The 23rd National Prayer Breakfast brought together political leaders, diplomats, clergy and senior government officials under the theme of forgiveness and reconciliation. But beyond the prayers and calls for unity, President William Ruto used the platform to unveil what could become a major economic relief for low-income earners.
That category should be moved to anybody who is earning 30,000 and less. They will not pay any taxes. Because we're beginning to think, plan, innovate differently.
The head of state announced that the government is preparing a proposal to exempt Kenyans earning up to 30,000 shillings from paying income tax.
The Treasury came back, some people there in the Treasury came back and said, oh, Mr. President, you know, this is going to be very big. You know, it's going to cost us 40 billion shillings in this budget. I told them, let's do it.
The president said his administration is now focusing on alternative and innovative methods of financing development projects without taxing citizens. He defended the government's economic record, citing gains in affordable housing and universal health care. The head of state further defended recent government interventions in the fuel sector.
Today, the Kenya government is subsidizing fuel. The actual price of diesel should be 273. It is 232. We're subsidizing 40 plus shillings for every litre. We've spent 28 billion shillings in the last 2 months. And we've done it with prudence.
At the same time, President Ruto assured Kenyans of a peaceful election despite rising political activity.
And we are going to have elections. And they will be peaceful. And there will be no violence. Kama Mungu ameamua Ruto will get a second term, he will. Kama Mungu ameamua vingine, that's what will happen. And we will move on as a country. Yes. So relax. There's no problem.
The president's remarks came as leaders attending the prayer breakfast called for tolerance, reconciliation and political restraint ahead of the next election cycle.
Political competition should never be enmity. It should just be but competition. Because when we finish competing, we have a country to look after.
That we keep it as a practice, as a tradition, as a custom to bring the nation together, to pray to God, to seek forgiveness, to seek reconciliation.
President Ruto was the opponent of my brother in the last elections. I never ever dreamt that I will ever sit down with him across the table because I believed, maybe wrongly, that he stole our elections. But today we are together in a broad-based government.
Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
Thank you, Ben Chumba, for that report. The government has launched an ambitious national plan to reduce preventable maternal and newborn deaths. President William Ruto presiding over the launch of the Every Woman, Every Newborn, Everywhere Acceleration Plan 2026 to 2028 said Kenya cannot be progressive if women continue dying during childbirth.
Mheshimiwa Rais pamoja na mama taifa, naomba tafadhali msalie jukwani.
Kenya has launched a 2-year acceleration plan starting 2026 to 2028 aimed at renewing its push to eliminate preventable maternal and newborn deaths. Speaking at the launch, President William Ruto termed the current mortality rates as a tragedy, pledging that no woman should lose her life giving birth.
While Kenya has made progress in expanding access to health, we must also acknowledge that maternal and newborn deaths remain unacceptably high. At the center of this plan is an immediate 6-month maternal and newborn health rapid results initiative running from now until November 2026. This will be an urgent nationwide effort to deliver measurable results and accelerate action where it matters most.
To bridge critical staffing gaps, the government has committed to recruiting 5,000 nurses and midwives across the country. The plan also targets expanding blood supply chains, improving emergency ambulance networks, and boosting funding through the Social Health Authority and SHIF programs.
We have allocated 13.1 billion to the Primary Health Fund and continue to support more than the 107 community health promoters. The National Treasury will allocate an additional 4 billion Kenya shillings to SHA to cover premiums for pregnant women so that no mother is denied delivery services because of their inability to pay.
Our president has received that document.
Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale said the initiative marks a shift from promises to implementation.
Most maternal and newborn deaths are preventable. The challenge before us is not lack of knowledge of what works, but ensuring that the right interventions reach every mother and every child at the time they most need it.
World Health Organization Kenya representative Dr. Neema Kimambo praised Kenya's measurable and evidence-based approach, noting that Africa still accounts for nearly 70% of global maternal deaths.
Approximately 16 mothers die every day and 90 newborns die every day. The urgency of this moment cannot be overstated. Africa accounts for roughly 70% of all global maternal deaths and half of newborn deaths, not because solutions don't exist, but because the systems to deliver them have not been built.
The initiative will run alongside a rapid results campaign targeting a 50% reduction in maternal deaths by November 2026.
Officials say these initiatives aims to safeguard every woman and every child across the country. For Prime Edition in State House, Nairobi, I am Teresa Mutai.
Time now for business news, where several flower farms are reporting up to 75% decline in revenue due to disruptions occasioned by the war in the Middle East. The Kenya Flower Council Communications Manager, Lina Jamwa, warns thousands of jobs are at risk if the war in the Middle East persists. Jamwa says the flower value chain is exploring new markets in new diversification drive.
Drone accounts for between 40 and 60% of total export costs during peak periods. As a result, approximately $4 million worth of flower exports are currently at risk every single week. And at the same time, fertilizer prices have risen by approximately 25% within 1 week. Production costs across farms have increased by 20 to 30%. Some farms have experienced revenue declines of up to 75% due to shipment delays and perishability losses.
As a country, we have continued to really innovate significantly just to ensure that we meet these stringent phytosanitary requirements. And one of them is really we have worked out on our automations. Currently, we have automated our issuance of phytosanitary certificates and also plant import permit, where clients can be able to get their document.
Elsewhere, players in the coffee value chain are pushing for higher local prices and consumption of coffee where players in the local coffee value chain are pushing for higher local coffee consumption and greater investment in value addition to reduce reliance on volatile overseas markets. The Kenya Coffee Hub co-founder Joshua Tiampati says expanding local processing, packaging as well as domestic consumption could improve farmer incomes, create jobs for young people and support long-term growth.
Despite Kenya's global reputation for premium Arabica coffee, local value chain players say earnings are below potential due to low domestic consumption. As a result, industry players are challenging Kenyans to increase intake of coffee to, among other things, help reduce reliance on volatile international markets.
There is certain standards, certain measures that have been put in place by foreign markets to regulate the kind of coffee they take in. And simply, this platform serves as an awareness platform. Today we have representatives even from the European Chamber of Commerce who have been able to distill that information for the coffee cooperatives and also the coffee exporters in the room.
Even at the cooperative level, there's a lot of understanding around traceability, because even the farmer wants to know, where is my coffee? Where has it been sold? So these are through technical digital transformations, we are able to provide this kind of data.
They argue that increasing local processing, branding and packaging is key in improving incomes for farmers while creating employment opportunities locally.
I want to call on all Kenyans to learn more about coffee. Grow coffee if you have a farm. If you don't, buy a farm and start to grow coffee. Coffee is an amazing natural resource that God has blessed us here in Kenya. And more Kenyans should be invested in it, should learn about it, and take a lot of pride in this beautiful natural resource.
They are challenging the youth to view coffee not only as a farming activity, but as a business opportunity spanning processing, marketing, retail, and export trade.
I'm happy that the young Kenyans have taken up this conversation, and thanks to Salome and Josh for really bringing this conversation. The attendance has been very good. And what I would like to say is they have our support as leaders, as legislators, and will ensure that, the Kenyan farmer is not exploited anymore.
Coffee is a key foreign exchange earner and supports the livelihoods of thousands of smallholder farmers across the country. The calls were made during the official unveiling of the Kenya Coffee Hub, a platform expected to support innovation, collaboration, and market access within the coffee sector. Ndotamo Kami for Prime Edition.
Also, financial institutions should restructure agricultural loan products to match farmers' planning and harvesting seasons in order to reduce default and boost loans for farming activities. Financial sector deepening Kenya Chief Executive Officer Rashmi Pillai says longer-term and more flexible financing products could create agricultural lending more attractive and competitive.
The International Fund for Agriculture Development says part of its 17 billion shillings earmarked for rural development will be for de-risking agriculture to stimulate lending to farmers. Financial sector deepening Kenya Chief Executive says most loan products are too short-term and fail to reflect the realities of agricultural production. The financial sector deepening boss says there is need for longer tenure financing solutions that would make agriculture lending more competitive and attractive to farmers while improving repayment performance.
Typical formal financing is structured like a business loan. I give you a loan, you have a 1-month grace period, and then you start paying back the loan. That's great for a trader if you're running a clothing business, etc. But it's not great if your harvest cycle is 6 months, 7 months, etc.
Pilali says restructuring agriculture loan books would help lower non-performing loans and increase investment in Kenya's key economic sector.
Focus in the next several years is to tighten and fix and help the sector make credit markets and information for credit work better to serve youth and smallholder farmers.
Youths in commercial activities, it's because of access to finance. They don't have land, they don't have collateral, and all those kind of things.
They are challenging financial institutions and investors to expand financing for green technologies in agriculture to lower production cost and grow returns.
Green is important because you're not destroying the biodiversity that we are dependent on.
They were speaking during the launch of a food system analysis report that identified dairy, horticulture, poultry, fisheries, aquaculture and apiculture as priority sectors requiring increased investment to strengthen food security. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Rosalia Massa Lola today became one of the many beneficiaries of the ongoing File and Pay campaign by the Kenya Revenue Authority after winning herself an umbrella shade for her business following her successful filing of her returns. Operating from a dilapidated shade for years, Rosalia was all smiles as she erected the new shade in Kafati, Kitui County, hailing the newly unveiled self-care plan for filing returns as a transformative move that will ease the pressure on her shoulders every time she returns a filing period. The Chijue Jibeta caravan was in Kitui County, staging stops in Kitui Town, stage terminus, Kitui Town Market, Kabati, Kwavonza and Katangi. The self-care allows an eligible taxpayer to quickly and efficiently file their returns through a dedicated WhatsApp number or through a short code. The campaign will be in Machakos County on Friday.
Mimi ni mfanyikazi wa hapa Kabati. Kazi yangu nachomanga mahindi. Nimefaili returns zangu za KRA kutumia WhatsApp na nimewini mwafuli na nimefurahia sana.
And of course, remember, the campaign is in close collaboration with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Consolidated Bank has posted an 86.4 million shillings in first quarter net profit, reversing a 12 million shillings loss that the lender recorded during a similar period last year. The profit, which represents an 869% turnaround, was mainly supported by higher interest income and growth in government securities, which boosted earnings.
Consolidated Bank disbursed 8.4 billion shillings in net loans and advances, representing a 1.7% increase of the 8.27 billion shillings that had been disbursed during a similar period last year. From this, the lender netted 518.5 million shillings in total interest income, representing an 11.5% increase. This was mainly on account of interest income on government securities, rising 51.8% to 249.5 million shillings, that offset an 8.9% dip in interest income on loans and advances to 268.1 million shillings. Furthermore, total non-interest income fell 16.6% to 133.9 million shillings. This was mainly on account of lower income as well as fees and commissions on loans and advances. On the other hand, despite total interest expenses reducing 40.8% to 140.4 million shillings, total other operating expenses increased 4.7% to 419.5 million shillings. This was mainly pushed up by higher staff cost and a loan loss provision. In addition, gross non-performing loans and advances increased from 3.8 billion shillings to 4.3 billion shillings. Consolidated Bank Acting Chief Executive Dominic Murage says the lender is focusing on deepening partnership with government agencies, ministries, universities and state corporations to expand financing for small and medium-sized enterprises through tailored financial products.
Every day, thousands of tons of cargo pass through the port of Mombasa, one of the busiest trade gateways in the region. Tonight, Trevor Ngendo takes us inside the operations of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, from cargo inspection and conformity assessment to laboratory analysis carried out as part of consumer protection as well as trade facilitation efforts.
The coast region, which serves 6 counties, remains a strategic entry point for imported goods entering Kenya. the Horn of Africa and the East African market through the port of Mombasa.
For many consumers, safety begins with a simple purchase, but behind that confidence is an extensive system of inspection that goes far beyond the movement of ship and cargo in the ocean behind me.
The first category involves products accompanied by a certificate of conformity issued under the Pre-Export Verification of Conformity program in the country of origin.
So before I come to the field, I have this field book. I write down the physical parameters that I need to check against the consignment.
That entails inspecting the goods physically by checking the physical condition of the goods, and then we take another step by taking it to our labs, which are ISO 17025 certified.
Inside the laboratories, samples collected from consignments undergo scientific testing against established Kenyan standards to determine safety, composition, performance and quality.
Now we test samples from various customers. We have inspection, they are our customers. We have quality assurance officers of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, our customers. We also have those who make standards, the standards department staff. If you have your sample as a private citizen, we can still offer that service of testing to you.
The Coast Region laboratories handle a range of tests across product categories, including food and microbiology testing, chemical analysis, petroleum and energy-related products, construction materials and consumer goods.
These are microbiological samples, or rather, we are dealing with microorganisms. Our major interest in those is in the microorganisms that cause side effects.
Once the analysis is complete, laboratory officers generate test reports, which form part of the conformity assessments and verification process used to determine whether the products can be released into the Kenyan market. This is done in close consultations with other state agencies. After this, the product is issued with the mark of quality stocker, giving it the nod to be distributed to the market.
We don't just end at certification. We undertake surveillance in the market, just to ensure that the people that we have certified are manufacturing their products in line with the certification contract that we entered. So where we find that the products do not meet the standards, it gives us an opportunity to go back, work with the manufacturers to ensure they bring the products back to conformity, and where failures persist, or we feel that these failures threaten the safety and the health of the consumer, then we withdraw those products from the market.
Trevor Ngendo for Prime Edition, Mombasa.
Well, of course, you're watching the Prime Edition live from Broadcasting House. Time now to shift focus and have a look at what's happening in the world of sports. Bernard Okumu is in studio with me. What are you promising us tonight, Bernard?
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, O'Brien. Thank you for staying with us on Channel 1 Sports. Indeed, what we have is the latest as far as preparations for the national under-17 women's soccer team as they gear up in facing Uganda, whom they play this weekend. Let's begin with that, where the national under-17 women's football team, the Junior Starlets, are beaming with confidence ahead of their high-stakes encounter against Uganda this Saturday at the Nyayo Stadium. The team that triumphs on aggregate in the second round will advance to the final third round to battle either Tanzania or South Africa for a place in the finals.
Striker Emilia Thiambo has voiced a strong belief, predicting a decisive victory for the host in the return leg of the 2026 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup qualifiers.
Walikuwa na ile mentality wakijua hatuwezi toa point kwao na walijua watatushinda. Sisi ni wabaya, ni wazuri. But si tulikuwa na ile mentality ya lazima to win home na to win away.
The regional rivals head into the second round decider on level terms after battling to a 1-1 draw at the Fufa Stadium in Kampala last week. In that first leg fixture, Uganda struck first with an 11th minute goal from Shadia Nabuire, but Adhiambo stepped up to net a crucial equalizer, leveling the aggregate score perfectly balanced. The neighboring rivals a shared history in the previous qualification cycle, where Kenya ruthlessly knocked Uganda out 5-0 on aggregate. The team that triumphs on the aggregate will advance to the final round to battle either Tanzania or South Africa for a slot to the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Morocco later this year.
And South Africa have a foot into the third round, having beaten Tanzania by 2-0 in the opening leg between the two sides. Moving on, the Kenya national sevens rugby team Shujaa will be gunning for nothing short of promotion when they start their quest in the remaining two legs of the HSBC Sevens World Championship Series in Valladolid and Bordeaux in France. Now they will touch down in the Spanish city of Valladolid first, starting tomorrow Friday, where they will take on Australia in Pool A at the Stadio Jose Zorrilla before they face defending champions South Africa in a highly anticipated fixture. On Saturday, Shujaa will face Great Britain in their last group match, hoping to proceed to the knockout phase. The Kenyan team finished 8th in Hong Kong and will push hard to avoid finishing in the bottom 4, where teams will be relegated to the developmental HSBC Sevens 2 series. The 3-tournament HSBC World Championship will conclude in Bordeaux, France, where Shujaa hopes to proceed in June in their determination to secure their core status for the next Sevens season.
Davis, he thought he was bumped in the air, and Kenya have it back. Really good passage of play for them, and they're up and running again, and they get another try. It's Abakusi. What a finish.
Also, the National Olympic Committee of Kenya successfully concluded its 2026 ordinary session of the General Assembly, establishing a robust operational, financial and constitutional roadmap aimed at safeguarding the future of Kenyan sport. Speaking during the event, NOC President Shadrack Maluki reflected deeply on the journey of his administration, articulating a visionary long-term framework structured around 5 core pillars. Maluki systematically unpacked the strategic operational mandate, outlining actionable policies targeted at every sector of the local sporting ecosystem. He also called for immediate institutional alignment with national frameworks and expressed absolute confidence in the talent capacity of Kenya's sporting fraternity to outperform global competitors despite temporary funding realities. A special general meeting will be convened in September to ratify the selected constitutional amendments to streamline leadership processes.
We have brought all the federations, presidents and secretary generals together following the rift that was caused by the last general elections. So I can say that we are now reading from the same script. We are all advancing together, and sports is key. Sports is key. If we don't pull in one direction, definitely the athletes are the ones who will be affected.
And some good news for the Kenyan tennis fraternity, where Tennis Kenya is expected to cement a monumental partnership with the French Tennis Federation this weekend on the sidelines of the French Open, which is ongoing at the Roland Garros in Paris. The occasion will also be graced by Kenya's ambassador to France, Betty Cheruon. Now, the Tennis Kenya president, Wanjiru Mbogo Karani, is already in France, where she met the mayor of the southern France city of Itres, Robin Preto, to launch an exchange program tomorrow between the elite Itres Sport Tennis Club and Tennis Kenya that will see players from both countries engage in training and play in reciprocal visits. Wanjiru Mbogo said Kenyan players will benefit a lot from the elite coaching programs, which have seen the rise of tennis legends like Joe Wilfred Songa, Gail Morfield and Richard Gasquet. Itres Sport Tennis Club boasts 5 outdoor clay courts and 4 indoor courts with additional new generation artificial clay and several squash and paddle courts. The partnership with the French authorities comes hot on the heels of the Africa Forward Summit in Nairobi, where discussions were held on sports development between the two countries. And with that particular story on the partnership between Kenya and France on honing the future tennis stars, we put a cap on today's sports. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bernardo Kuma. Take you back to Brian Kimani.
Thank you, Okumu, for taking us through the world of sports. Your time is highly appreciated. Well, and with the time coming to 10:30, we're coming up to the end of the Prime Edition tonight. Thank you for your time on behalf of the producers, the camera people, the directors, and everyone involved in the production. Your time is highly appreciated. We'll see you on Thursday next week. Until then, have a good night.
Watrack hiyo kari.
Ati anatuma nini?
Kunusi.
Hizo ni nini?
Makunisi hiyo yali mheshimiwa.
Guns.
Ndio hiyo mheshimiwa.
Kunis.
Usiwanaitwango makunisi mheshimiwa.
Guns.
Can we call this English please?
No problem.
What about if we put like this? You put my phone tracker so that you can track me because you love me because I'm a baby face.
Oh,
what about that one?
What is he talking about?
Kwani gari ni wale tatu atasahau hapa aende. Gari kubwa na mna hiyo wewe atasahau aje.
Mama, unajua mapenzi ni nini wewe?
A world record holder in Paralympics, an icon and a mentor.
I'm happy to I struggled so that many other people people with disability can be able to benefit. We are not yet there, lakini what I can say, we are somewhere. Things are changing. They cannot happen overnight, but I thank God things are happening. We are on the right direction.
Sylvia's world changed